Lou, you know we aren't supposed to go into the woods. Yeah, but how else are we going to get our nature spotting badge, Kev? It was the first week of July, and the jamboree was less than a week away. By Friday, they would need to have their bags packed and be ready to go Saturday morning for the annual campout and scout meet. They had only the next 3 days to get the badge requirements, and they had already spent a day and a half waiting on Davy Forrester to give them his map that he said he had. And if he doesn't come through, we're royally boned, Lewis said. Let's just wait till next year, Lou, Kevin tried to tell him, the two of them heading past the cemetery and into town. We don't have to be first-class scouts this year. I'm tired of being a second-class scout, Kev. We have been second-class scouts for 2 years. Do you really want to see Gabriel lord it over us when he gets to be a first-class scout at the jamboree and we don't? Kevin thought about that for a minute and decided he really didn't like the taste of it. No, he finally whispered, kicking a rock. He'll act all superior, too, when we don't get it, and he does. Exactly, Lewis said. Look, we both only need one more badge to advance. This local wildlife identification badge will put us over the requirements, and then we can all three get pinned at the jamboree. Think about it, Kev. We can be first-class scouts together and rub it in Gabriel's face when he doesn't get to boss us around. Kev liked the sound of that, and as they came to the diner, they could see Davy's red Huffy out front. The boy in question was sitting at the bar of the diner, drinking a milkshake and checking his watch, and when the two of them walked in, they weren't surprised when Mrs. Blair put down a couple of chocolate milkshakes in front of them. Thanks, Mrs. Blair, they both intoned, and laid a couple of bucks on the counter for the shakes. No problem, boys. Looking forward to the jamboree? She asked as she wiped the counter. Yes, ma'am, Kevin said, sliding the straw in as he took a sip. We're going to be first-class scouts this year, Lewis said with confidence. They're going to pin us at the ceremony. That sounds lovely, boys, said Mrs. Blair. Well, you two enjoy your milkshakes, and I hope this year's campout is a good one. She moved off to help some other customers, and the two of them heard Davy Forrester scoff loudly. You babies ain't making first-class scout. You'd be one of the youngest to do it in 20 years. Stick with your patches, kids, and enjoy them while you have them. Lewis snorted. You sure do talk a lot of crap for someone who isn't even in high school yet. Davy smiled. Maybe that's why I never made it past second-class scout myself. But I was older than you two when I decided it wasn't for me. Davy Forrester was 13, an age that seemed lofty to the two 10-year-olds sitting next to him. He had gotten out of scouts last year, after he'd taken a shine to baseball and made the school team, but there was talk that he had refused to promote to first-class scout after some kind of misunderstanding. Everybody knew Davy, knew him and pitied him, and it wasn't just because he wasn't welcome at the jamboree anymore. Something had changed in Davy the year before, and sometimes he looked older than his 13 years. Davy fished in his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of notebook paper. You still want it? He asked, holding it between his second and middle finger. Lewis nodded. It's the real McCoy, right? Davy nodded. It'll take you to the place in the woods where you'll see the animals you want to catalog. Be warned, though, there's a high price for the map. Lewis rolled his eyes. Yeah. Lenny told me he had to give you $2 for it. Here, he said, holding the money out like they were doing a drug deal or something. Davy made the cash disappear and handed in the map. Pleasure doing business with you, boys. Hopefully, you both make it to the jamboree. He got up then, leaving 50 cents on the counter, and headed back to his bike. What do you think he meant by that? Kevin asked. Lewis shrugged and unfolded the map. He's just being a nit. Don't mind him. Come on, we'll go get our packs and hit the woods before dark. We can be there before the sun sets and set up so we can see these local creatures we need to catalog. He folded up the map and put it in his pocket, the two of them leaving some change behind and heading out as well. Isn't there another way we can get that last badge? Kevin asked, the fear creeping into his voice. My parents told me never to go into the woods after dark, and yours did too. Lewis made a rude sound. Well, neither of us can make a successful snare for the survivalist badge. Our wells never make water for the homestead badge, and our shelters always fall apart during the wilderness badge. It's either this one or we navigate back using the stars, and both of those require us to be in the woods at night. So no, I guess this is our only option before Friday. We can go camp out tonight, spot and identify the creatures, and be back by morning so we can talk to Scoutmaster Dan and get our badges. Bing bang boom, and we'll get our advancement on Saturday night at the bonfire. Kevin hesitated, but agreed, and by lunchtime the two boys had their packs on and were ready to head into the woods. They had told their parents they were going to camp out in Willie's backyard before the jamboree, and Willie had agreed to toe the party line if asked. They stopped by his place on their way out and saw that he had a tent set up in the backyard and had made some pretty good mock-ups of them to cast shadows through the canvas after dark. "It helps with my shadow play badge," Willie explained, a badge that he was trying to get so he could move up to second-class scout. Willie's dad worked overnight at the gas station, and Willie's mom had notoriously bad eyesight, so both boys were fairly certain that it would pass muster. They left him to his shadow puppets and went off to search for local fauna. The woods around Cashmere were beautiful, but they were also dangerous. The boys had their sigils, something they had made when they were in Cub Scouts, and that all scouts wore when they were in the woods. They were supposed to keep them safe from some of the nasty things that hung out under the trees, and since none of them had been devoured by a boogin on their monthly campout, Lewis and Kevin assumed that they worked. They followed the map out of town, up the road that would take them to Stragview, and then off into the woods by the old mill. According to the map, the two of them would hike for about a mile, and then come to a meadow with a thicket in the middle, Lewis read, scrunching his eyes. Meadow with a thicket. I don't think I've ever seen it. Me either, said Kevin, hitching his pack up. It's farther into the woods than we usually go, too. True, Lewis said. This part of the woods was a little different from anything they had seen in their time here. The trees looked older, gnarlier. The whole collection of pines seemed to be more at home in a Halloween display. The sun was beginning to ride low in the sky, their feet inevitably taking them closer to the place where they would need to do their spotting. They'd spotted a few local birds, a fox that ran across the path, and then a rabbit who scuttled into his burrow. And when a loud noise crashed through the thin trees ahead of them, they saw the ass end of a black bear as it headed towards the deeper woods, in no particular hurry. It was about 5 by the sun when they came to the edge of the pine forest and saw the thicket. It was strange, like a tuft of hair on a bald head, and the longer Lewis looked at it, the less empty he thought it might be. There were strange shapes, angry little bees that seemed to be working, and as the sun dipped, Kevin reminded him that he needed to set up their tent. Lewis shook it off and went to help Kevin with the setup, and as the sun set, the two of them were sitting in their tent and eating MREs. They didn't dare light a fire out here. Scoutmaster Dave had made that very clear, and as they ate, Kevin questioned again what they were doing out there. We're here to spot local fauna. The guide is very clear that some of them can only be spotted after dark. It's pitch black out there, Lou. What are we going to see? As if in answer, the ground began to shake a little, and both the boys hit the canvas in their panic. The plastic smell of new tent was thick in their nose as the sides jostled and the fabric billowed. It was like being in the middle of a stampede, and as it finally tapered off, Lewis went to peek out of the tent to see what had happened. Lou, don't, Kevin asked, but Lewis was already at the tent flap. By the light of the moon, an odd spotlight for the creatures who were heading for the thicket, he saw a group of them that he couldn't identify. There were quite a few of them, a regular herd, and their bodies were black and inky, They looked like aliens, a group of sleek black extraterrestrials that were making their way to the now bright thicket. There was a fire burning there now, the lights dancing as other creatures moved. They were hairy, their heads oddly misshapen, and as the wind brought their sound to the boys, it was chanting, the kind he was certain he would hear around an Indian's powwow. The creatures were nowhere to be seen. They had not magically joined the dance. And as Lewis took a step outside the tent, Kevin grabbed his arm. "Where are you going?" he asked, breathless and scared. "I want to see what's going on," Lewis said, but Kevin yanked him back all the harder. "You can't, Lou. What if they get you? I can't stay out here all night by myself." "Well," Lewis said, "come with me then." Hesitantly, Kevin agreed, and the two of them headed off into the night to see what lurked around the campfire. They hunkered in the shadows of the thicket, watching as the slick black creatures walked amongst the hairy men. The men, like Bigfoots or some kind of apes, fed the creatures meat and lounged with them by the fire. The two species seemed to speak without saying a word, and as they lounged, watching the others dance, Kevin's eyes became as round as dinner plates. Lewis was taking it all in, though. These would get them their badges for sure. If he could just make it back to Scoutmaster Dan, they could both get their promotions. "Let's go," he whispered to Kevin, after what felt like hours had passed. But as the two of them turned around, both gasped as they came face to face with a tall man in a gray hoodie. "Shh," he whispered, and suddenly both boys were overcome with a loud and grating noise. It invaded their ears, their minds, and even seemed to hum in their bones. Both of them fell over, shaking as it rushed through them, and as they whited out, Lewis saw the man bend down over him before everything went out. They came to on the edge of the road, the one that led to the prison. Their gear was packed and lying beside them, and their symbols were lying on their chests, catching the light. "Lou," Kevin said, putting a hand to his head, "do you know what happened?" Lewis shook his head. "I remember the fire and the hairy men, but that's it." "We need to tell somebody," Kevin said, sounding scared. "We sure do," Lewis said, getting up and shouldering his pack. "We need to tell Scoutmaster Dan." "What?" Kevin said. "Why would we tell him?" "Because," Lewis said, grinning from ear to ear, "after finding these guys, they have to elevate us now. This is a find that no one else can top." Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel. There's so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and if you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do, and it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.